On February 13th, 2013, the Computer History Museum wrote a blog post about the coordination of their release of the Adobe Photoshop 1.0.1 source code. On March 30th, 2013, a blog called The Long View wrote a post about the release and their attempts to compile Photoshop from the source release. This is complicated because the original version of Photoshop is written in Object Pascal, uses an application development framework from Apple called MacApp, uses an extremely obscure version of MacApp from around version 1.1.1, and is compiled in MPW, Apple's ancient integrated development environment, the Macintosh Programmer's Workshop. Let's try to compile it. First, you will need an emulator called MiniVMac. You will need a ROM extracted from your Macintosh Plus and a copy of Apple's System 6.0.8 software installed on a disk image MiniVMac can boot. Next, you will need a copy of Macintosh Programmer's Workshop 3.0. Apple distributed a CD-ROM as part of the Apple Developer Program containing MPW 3.0, 3.1, and some additional utilities. First, let's install ResEdit 1.2, a resource editor Apple distributed for free. Let's also install MacsBug, a low-level debugger for classic Macintoshes, and MPW, the Macintosh Programmer's Workshop. Drag them onto the hard drive from the CD and they are copied. We can install MacsBug by copying it and the debugger prefs file into the system folder. We will have to reboot to fully install it, but first, the MacsBug distribution on the CD comes with some DCMD resources for additional debugging capability. To install, we use ResEdit to copy the resources into the debugger prefs file. Floating point utilities for examining floating point numbers in the debugger, HFS calls for setting breakpoints on calls into Apple's hierarchical file system library, something called the list manager, C++ name unmangling, and the MacsBug keyboard layout resource. Now we have a competent low-level debugger installed. We can access it by pressing the interrupt button. Here you can see that it reported NMI, a non-maskable interrupt. We can continue back to normal operation by typing G and pressing return. G for go. Apple distributed example source code showing how to make your own debugger extensions. They also distributed example source code showing how to make your own resource editors to extend ResEdit. So now let's launch the Macintosh Programmer's Workshop and learn how to use it. It has a very early user interaction paradigm called the workspace in the programming language Smalltalk. In MPW, it is called the worksheet and is a window that is always open whenever MPW is open. Instead of a command line interface common with home computers in the 80s, the worksheet is an infinitely scrolling sheet of editable text where computation can be performed by clicking the cursor in a line which contains a command and pressing the Enter key on the numeric keypad. The return key on a Macintosh keyboard inserts a new line as usual. This user interaction paradigm is still used today in applications such as Squeak Smalltalk, Mathematica, and Jupyter Notebooks. The worksheet that ships with MPW includes many commands that can be executed to find more information about MPW and to manipulate parts of MPW. The hashtag or pound sign is used to indicate a comment and will do nothing when executed. MPW includes a source code editor like any other integrated development environment, and the window that is directly below the worksheet is the target of commands. This is called the target window. Here, we can see that if we insert some text in a text file, Then go back to the worksheet and use the find command with the text we want to find between slashes and press the Enter key. We will find the next occurrence of that text in the target window. So now we have learned how to install Apple Macintosh System Software version 6, ResEdit 1.2, MacsBug, and MPW 3.0. We also learned how to copy dcommand resources into the debugger preferences file using ResEdit, break into MacsBug using the interrupt switch, and use MPW to edit text files and the basics of the worksheet. Next time, we will continue with compiling Hello World in both Pascal and C, and installing Mac App 1.1.1, the object-oriented framework for developing Macintosh applications released by Apple from the late 80s until the early 2000s.